Everyone in the river towns knew the name of the vampire king, and they spoke it the way people spoke of storms, quietly, with their eyes lowered, as if sound itself might carry too far. They called him Alaric of Veyl, the Night Crown. Mothers pulled children indoors when the moon went thin. Traders hurried past the pine-black ridges and never stopped on the old road, not even to help a stranger, because fear made them selfish in the name of survival. Priests left bowls of salt on window sills and whispered prayers like they were building invisible walls. And yet, for all the fear, not one of them could say they had met him. They only repeated what they'd been taught, that he owned the night, that he could taste lies on the air, that he collected human hearts the way misers collected coins. It was easier to believe a monster was simple. It was safer to believe he had no tenderness at all. Isabella first heard his name spoken as a verdict. She stood outside the parlor of House Belgrave while rain tapped at the tall glass. Her stepmother's voice drifted through the door, sharp and careful. "She is unfortunate," Lady Marrow said. "Delicate. Not suited for childbearing." The midwife confirmed it. A wasted line. A man answered, older, cautious. "A broker. The king won't care. He takes what he takes." "That's precisely why it's useful," Lady Marrow replied. "No heirs. No claim. No complications. She will be a gift, not a future." Isabella's stomach turned cold. She didn't cry. She had learned that tears only fed the cruelty of people who wanted her smaller. That night she packed a small cloth bag and tucked her mother's thimble inside, as if something tiny and familiar could keep her from disappearing completely. In the morning, the carriage came. No ropes. No chains. They didn't need them. Fear could hold a person tighter than iron. The broker, Mr. Sallow, pale and polite, spoke as if he were reciting a contract. "Do you understand you're being offered for the safety of this region?" The king agreed to a pact. A yearly tribute, and he will not cross the rivers. Isabella stared out at the grey road. "I understand I'm being sold." The carriage carried her into the ridge country where fog curled between pines and the air turned clean and cold. At dusk they reached a black iron gate. No guards. No torches. Only a lantern burning with a steady flame that didn't flicker in the wind. Beyond it, a stone road led to a castle rising out of mist like something remembered rather than built. "Do not speak unless addressed," Mr. Sallow murmured, and even he sounded afraid. The doors opened before they reached them. Warm light poured out, half light, ordinary and steady. No soldiers appeared. No servants hurried. Only quiet, and the soft ticking of a clock somewhere deep inside. Mr. Sallow bowed to the empty air. "Your Majesty." Isabella lifted her eyes. Alaric stood at the top of the steps, half in shadow, half in firelight. He wore no armor, no theatrical crimson. Just a black coat, a silver clasp, and a pale face carved by patience. When he looked at Isabella, his eyes held no hunger. They held exhaustion. "So," he said softly, "they sent you." Mr. Sallow stepped forward. "The tribute." "I know what they told you to say," Alaric interrupted, not harshly, just as someone tired of rehearsed lies. His gaze returned to Isabella. "What is your name?" Her voice came out thin. "Isabella." A pause, long enough that she felt something unfamiliar, not being measured, but noticed. "Welcome to Veyl," Alaric said. He dismissed the broker with a simple, "You may go." Mr. Sallow almost ran back into the fog, and the gate shut with a final sound that made Isabella's chest tighten. Now there was only her, the king, and the quiet. Alaric descended slowly, stopping a respectful distance away. "You're trembling." "I'm not cold," Isabella said, a little too sharply. "I didn't think you were," he answered. "Come inside. The road is long, and you've had little choice." That word, choice, hurt more than fear. Inside, the castle smelled of cedar and lavender. Rugs softened the stone. A coat hung on a hook as if someone might wear it tomorrow. It didn't feel like a lair. It felt like a home someone had kept alive out of stubbornness. In a sitting room, a low fire burned. Alaric gestured to a chair. "Sit. I'll have tea brought." "By whom?" Isabella asked before she could stop herself. A small, almost startled softness touched his mouth. "By me." He poured the tea with steady hands and placed the cup near her, not forcing closeness. Isabella wrapped her fingers around the warmth, unsure what to do with a kindness that asked for nothing. "Why is everyone afraid of you?" she whispered. Alaric watched the fire for a moment. "Because fear is easy," he said. "And useful." "For you?" "For them," he corrected gently. "If I am a monster, their rulers can control them with stories. Their neighbors can blame misfortune on the night instead of on greed, sickness, or bad choices." Isabella stared down at her tea. "My stepmother said I was not suited for children." Alaric's gaze sharpened, not with interest, but recognition. She used that as a weapon. "It's true," Isabella said, though the words tasted like shame. "The midwife." "The midwife was paid," Alaric replied quietly. Isabella looked up, startled. "How do you know?" "I know the shape of lies," he said. "And I know the shape of cruelty dressed as politeness." Her hands began to shake, not with fear now but with anger she'd never been allowed to carry. "Then why take me? Why accept the tribute at all?" Alaric met her eyes. "Because if I refuse, they send someone else," he said. "Someone smaller. Someone younger. Someone who won't survive what they intend." The meaning landed slowly, heavy and tender. "You choose," Isabella breathed. "I choose the one most likely to live," he said. "And then I do what I can." "I'm trapped here," she whispered. "I prefer sheltered," he said, and then added, as if carefully laying down a promise, "You may walk in daylight. The gardens are yours. You will have a room, books, quiet, anything that helps you breathe again." Isabella didn't know how to answer. She had expected a monster. Instead she found a king who offered space. Days passed. The castle kept a gentle rhythm. Alaric did not hover. He did not demand gratitude. He asked what she read, and listened as if her thoughts mattered. Isabella learned the halls, the windows where sunlight warmed stone, the greenhouse where herbs grew in neat rows. Once, she found Alaric there, fingertips brushing a basil leaf like it held a memory. "My mother kept gardens," he said softly. "Before I was what I am." "Were you born?" Isabella asked. "Yes," he said, and the quietness of it made her throat ache. "I was a boy once." After that, she began noticing small things, kindness that didn't announce itself. A basket of food would vanish from the pantry before dawn. A cloak would disappear from a hook. When Isabella asked, Alaric only said, "Someone needed them." After a storm, she found a handful of soaked birds huddled on the steps. She knelt to scatter crumbs, but it was Alaric who came with a folded blanket, laying it on the cold stone so their feet wouldn't freeze. He did it without expecting to be watched. At the edge of the ground stood an old ruined shrine, half swallowed by moss. Isabella found fresh candles there, new wax, burned wicks. When she mentioned it, Alaric looked away. "For whom?" she asked. "For those who are not remembered," he said. Slowly, Isabella understood. Alaric's goodness was stitched into the world like thread on the inside of a coat, hidden, holding everything together, never meant for applause. One evening, she asked, "Do you ever get lonely?" He went still for a moment, as if honesty cost him more than silence. "Yes," he said. "Then why stay here?" she asked. "Why not go among people?" "Because I am what they fear," he replied. "If I walk among them, the fear becomes permission for panic, for cruelty, for fire." Isabella remembered how easily crowds turned sharp. She believed him. "Do you drink blood?" she asked, the forbidden question. "Yes," Alaric said calmly. "Not from those who do not consent. Never from those who cannot afford the loss. I have arrangements, vials traded for medicine, coin, protection. It's less romantic than stories, and more complicated than fear allows." Isabella's eyes stung, not with horror but with the weight of his restraint, his careful humanity. Winter softened the world with snow. One afternoon Isabella found a small cradle in an unused chamber, carved with tiny stars. Dust lay thick around it, but the carving was still gentle, still loving. When she told Alaric, his face went still. "A family lived here long ago," he said. "Before the world decided I was only a monster. They trusted me." "What happened?" Isabella whispered. "Time," he said. "Illness. And later, fear. People came with torches, and the family fled, not because I threatened them, but because my name did." "Did you let them go?" "I helped them," Alaric said. "A route through the valley. Food for the road. I watched until their lanterns disappeared." His voice thinned with something like grief. "That is how my kindness usually looks. Like absence." That night Isabella couldn't sleep. The word her stepmother used, infertile, echoed in her mind like a label meant to erase her. She went down the corridor and found Alaric in the library with maps spread out before him. "I want the truth," she said. "Why you accepted me?" He folded the map slowly. "Because your stepmother's letter said you were worthless," he replied. "And I recognized that kind of cruelty. So you took me to punish her?" Isabella asked. "No," he said, and the gentleness of it stopped her. "I took you because you were in danger. They sent you here to erase you." He stepped closer, but not too close. "They fear me enough that they won't come looking," he said. "They will tell themselves you are gone. And you can live." "Live as what?" Isabella whispered. "As Isabella," he answered. "Not as a bargain. Not as a defect. not a shame. Something in her finally loosened, and tears came, quietly, as if she were learning to be human again. Alaric took one careful step back, giving her space, protecting her dignity even in her crying. "I don't know what to do with kindness," she admitted. "It feels like a trap." "I know," Alaric said. "The world teaches that lesson when it offers kindness with strings." She wiped her face and breathed out. "Why are you still here?" she asked. "Why let them hate you?" Alaric looked toward the maps, the marked roads, the small villages. "Because fear makes boundaries," he said. "And boundaries keep worse things at bay. Worse than you." He met her gaze with quiet honesty. "Hunger can be managed," he said. "Power without conscience cannot. If they fear me, they hesitate before they come into these woods looking for someone to blame." Isabella understood then, with a slow, aching clarity. He carried the world's fear like a shield, not for himself, but for others. Spring arrived shyly. Snow melted into singing streams. Isabella learned the names of herbs, wrote careful notes, and once she laughed, an accidental sound that startled her. Alaric looked up from his book, and something softened around his eyes, like a door left unlatched. One morning a small boy appeared at the iron gate, shaking. "They said not to come," he whispered, "but my sister's sick. We have no coin." Isabella's chest tightened. She looked back toward the castle. Alaric stood in the doorway, watching without looming, letting her choose. Isabella gathered feverfew and willow bark, wrapped them in cloth, and returned to the boy. "Tell your mother how to steep it," she said. Then she hesitated and added gently, "Say it came from the gardens. Not from a monster." The boy ran down the road clutching the bundle like hope. When Isabella turned, Alaric was behind her. "You didn't have to do that," she said softly. "I didn't ask permission." "You used what you learned," he replied. "You gave without demanding to be seen." Isabella swallowed. "Is that what you've been doing?" "Yes," he said. "And now you understand why it must be quiet." That evening, as twilight turned the windows violet, Isabella sat with him by the fire. "I used to think my worth was what I could give," she said. "Obedience. Usefulness. Children." Alaric listened without interrupting. "But here," Isabella continued, voice steadying, "you didn't ask me to be anything. You just let me be." "I know what it is to be turned into a story," he said. "I would not do that to you." "They will always fear you," Isabella whispered. "Yes. And you let them." Alaric looked into the fire. "If fear is the price of peace," he said quietly, "I have paid it a long time." Isabella stood and went to the window. Beyond the glass, the forest breathed in the evening wind. The world would keep telling its simple stories. It would keep calling him cruel, because that made their fear feel justified. She turned back. "Will you ever tell them the truth?" she asked. "Truth must be carried by those who can survive it," Alaric said. "And most people don't want it if it threatens what they think they know." Isabella nodded, then said, surprised by her own steadiness, "I can carry some of it." Alaric looked at her, truly looked, and in his eyes she saw something almost fragile, trust offered carefully, like a candle held out against wind. "You don't owe me that," he said. "I know," Isabella replied. "That's why it matters." After that, Isabella began leaving anonymous notes in the baskets that went out at night, simple instructions for herbs, small lines of encouragement, quiet kindness with no signature. She never used Alaric's name. She never tried to prove anything. She only sent goodness outward the way seeds were scattered, trusting some would take root. Alaric remained feared. Doors still locked when fog thickened. Stories still sharpened him into something cruel. But sometimes, when a fever broke unexpectedly, or a traveler found a lantern lit on a dangerous road, people would pause, confused, unsettled not by terror but by the faint possibility that the monster in their tales might be doing what they themselves had forgotten how to do. And in the castle the world called cursed, Isabella stood in a sunlit greenhouse, hands smelling of rosemary and earth. She thought of the girl she had been, sold, labeled, discarded, and of the king she had been taught to fear. Then she heard Alaric's footsteps behind her, unhurried and respectful. He stopped in the doorway as if her boundaries still mattered. Isabella turned and met his gaze. For the first time, she did not feel afraid. Only a quiet, steady gratitude, and the gentle realization that true kindness can live behind a feared name, asking for nothing, protecting everything, and giving someone like Isabella a place to become whole.